Part 1. The lie I told myself. I was sitting on our couch when I sent it. The couch we'd picked out together, the one with the stain from our son's sippy cup that never quite came out. My husband was upstairs giving Leo a bath, and I could hear them laughing about something. I sent the text, "Anywhere coffee talks. When can we do that again?" Harmless, that's what I told myself. Just a friendly message to a colleague who made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Marcus worked in the finance department. We'd started chatting during a company retreat 3 months earlier, and those conversations had become the highlight of my workday. He laughed at my jokes. He asked about my photography hobby, the one I'd abandoned after Leo was born. He made me feel like I was still someone interesting, not just someone's wife and someone's mother. My husband Tom and I had been together for 9 years, married for 6. We were solid. Everyone said so. We had the house, the kid, the routines. Sunday morning pancakes. Wednesday date nights that usually turned into grocery runs because we were too tired to go out. We were fine, we were comfortable. We were exactly what I'd wanted when I was 25 and believed that stability meant happiness. But somewhere in the dailiness of it all, I'd started feeling invisible. Tom came home from work exhausted. We talked about daycare schedules and mortgage payments and whether Leo was hitting his developmental milestones. We didn't talk about me anymore, about my dreams or fears or the person I used to be before I became someone's everything. My friend Jenna had noticed I was different around Marcus at the holiday party. "Girl, I see that smile," she'd said, refilling her wine glass. "When was the last time Tom made you light up like that?" She wasn't wrong. Tom hadn't looked at me like I was fascinating in years. He looked at me like I was furniture. Comfortable, necessary furniture. Marcus texted back within minutes. "Tomorrow. Same place." I should have stopped there. I should have recognized the flutter in my stomach for what it was. But I didn't. I told myself it was just friendship. I deserved friends. I deserved to feel interesting. I deserved someone who saw me as more than a checked box on life's to-do list. The coffee meetups became lunches. The lunches became long walks during our lunch breaks. Marcus told me about his divorce, how his ex-wife had stopped seeing him as a person. I told him how invisible I felt, how motherhood had erased the parts of me that used to matter. He understood in a way Tom never seemed to. "You're not invisible to me," he said one afternoon, and the way he looked at me made something crack open inside my chest. I started dressing better for work. Started wearing the perfume I'd saved for special occasions. Tom noticed once, said I looked nice, then went back to scrolling through his phone. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask anything anymore. The worst part is that I convinced myself Tom had stopped caring. I built an entire narrative where I was the victim of his neglect, where my loneliness was his fault. I looked at social media posts of taking exotic vacations and having romantic date nights and told myself I deserved that too. I deserved to feel wanted. I deserved passion. Marcus sent me an article about rekindling creativity in your 30s, then a song that reminded him of something I'd said, then a photo of a sunset with the caption, "Wish you were here to see this." Every message felt like proof that someone still saw me as a complete person, not just a role I performed. I knew what was happening. Somewhere deep down beneath all my justifications I knew. But I was so hungry for attention that I pretended I didn't. It happened on a Thursday. We'd gone for drinks after, just the two of us. Marcus had just gotten news about a promotion. We were celebrating. The bar was dim and the wine was good, and he kept touching my arm when he laughed. He walked me to my car. We stood there in the parking garage and I knew I should get in and drive home. I knew my husband was waiting. I knew my son was probably already asleep. But Marcus said, "I can't stop thinking about you," and I let him kiss me. I kissed him back. We sat in his car for an hour just talking and touching and pretending this was somehow okay. I told myself it was just a kiss. Just one moment of feeling alive again. Tom would never know. It didn't have to mean anything. It meant I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I went home and Tom was on the couch watching a documentary about space. "How was your day?" he asked, barely looking up. "Fine," I said. "Long," he nodded. "Leo's asleep. I saved you some dinner." He'd put our son to bed. He'd done exactly what he always did, quietly holding our life together while I was in a parking garage destroying it. I couldn't eat. I went upstairs and showered and stood under the hot water trying to scrub away what I'd done. But I could still feel Marcus's hands. Could still hear him saying my name like it was something precious. The guilt lasted exactly 3 days before I saw Marcus again. He texted saying we needed to talk about what happened. We met for coffee. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me, that he'd never felt this connection with anyone. I said we should stop, that I was married, that this was wrong. Then he took my hand and I didn't pull away. It continued for 6 weeks. Stolen moments, secret messages, elaborate lies about working late or meeting friends. Every time I told myself it would be the last time. Every time I went back, Jenna knew something was different. She cornered me at a birthday party and asked if I was okay. I told her everything. I expected judgment, but she just squeezed my hand and said, "We only get one life. You deserve to be happy." That became my mantra. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to feel wanted. I deserve this. I stopped seeing Marcus as a married man playing with fire. I started seeing him as my escape route, my proof that I could still be someone beyond mother and wife. I made plans in my head. Maybe Tom and I weren't meant to last forever. Maybe we'd grown apart. Maybe Leo would be fine with 2 happy separated parents instead of 2 distant married ones. I was so deep in my fantasy that I didn't notice Tom getting quieter. Didn't notice the way he'd watch me when I was texting. Didn't notice that he'd stopped asking about my day because I'd stopped giving him real answers. The Wednesday before it ended, Marcus said he was falling in love with me. We were in his apartment, and I should have felt scared. Instead I felt vindicated. See, I was worth loving. I was worth this kind of attention. I told him I needed time to figure things out. What I meant was I needed time to figure out how to leave my marriage without looking like the villain. Tom found out on a Sunday. I'd forgotten to delete a text thread. My phone was on the kitchen counter and it buzzed while I was putting Leo down for a nap. Tom probably wasn't trying to snoop. He probably just glanced at it. But what he saw was enough. I came downstairs and he was sitting at the kitchen table, my phone in front of him, his face completely blank. How long? He asked. His voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear him. I could have lied, I could have minimized it. But something about the way he was looking at me, or not looking at me, made the truth come spilling out. Not all of it, but enough. He didn't yell, he didn't throw anything. He just nodded slowly like I'd confirmed something he'd suspected all along. I need you to leave, he said. Not forever, just tonight. I can't look at you right now. I tried to explain. Tried to tell him about feeling invisible and lonely and lost. He held up his hand. I held you every night while you were pregnant and terrified, he said, still in that terrible quiet voice. I changed every diaper at 3 a.m. so you could sleep. I put my career on hold so you could keep yours. I'm not perfect, but I was here. I've always been here. I had no answer for that. Because he was right. He had been there. Steady, reliable Tom. And I'd mistaken steady for boring. I'd mistaken reliability for not caring. He went upstairs. I heard drawers opening and closing. When he came back down, he had a bag packed. Tom, please, I started. I asked you to leave, he said. But this is Leo's home, so I'm going instead. My lawyer will contact you. Lawyer. The word hit me like a physical blow. We can fix this, I said, and I almost believed it. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, he said, and walked out. I stood in our kitchen in our home surrounded by the life we'd built, and felt the full weight of what I'd done. This wasn't going to be a fight we'd recover from. This wasn't going to be a rough patch we'd laugh about years from now. I'd destroyed us completely, and there was no going back. Coup fin part. The wreckage. Tom came back the next morning to get clothes for work. He didn't speak to me, didn't even look in my direction. He went straight to Leo's room, kissed our son goodbye, and left. I called Marcus in a panic. I needed someone to tell me this would be okay. That love was messy sometimes, that following your heart was worth it. He listened for maybe 5 minutes before saying he needed to go. His tone had changed. I wasn't exciting anymore. I was complicated. I was a problem to be solved. He stopped answering my texts by that afternoon. Within 48 hours it became clear that Marcus had been telling his own version of events to people at work. In his version I'd pursued him relentlessly. He'd tried to keep things professional. I'd been the aggressor. By the time I walked into the office on Wednesday, I could feel the stares. The whispers stopped when I entered rooms, which somehow felt worse than if they'd continued. Jenna took me to lunch. I thought she'd be supportive, remind me that I deserved happiness. Instead, she was distant. Everyone knows, she said. I feel terrible. I encouraged you. I made it sound like this was some empowering thing when really it was just selfish. You said I deserved to be happy, I reminded her. Yeah, she said quietly. I was wrong. Your kid deserved a family. Tom deserved honesty. You deserved to work on your marriage or leave it before starting something new. This isn't happiness, this is just destruction. She paid for her own meal and left. We haven't spoken since. Tom's sister called me a few days later. Sarah had always been kind to me, had welcomed me into their family like I'd always belonged there. Not anymore. I don't understand how you could do this to him, she said. He worshipped you. He built his entire life around making you happy. And you threw it away for what? Some excitement. I tried to explain about feeling invisible, about losing myself. She cut me off. You know what Tom told me last night? He said he'd noticed you were distant. He'd planned this whole thing for your anniversary next month. He'd booked a photographer and was going to take you back to all the places you went on your first dates. He wanted to remind you why you fell in love. He thought maybe if he could show you who you used to be together, you'd stop looking so sad all the time. I couldn't breathe. Tom had noticed. He'd been planning something. He'd been trying. He blamed himself. Sarah continued. Thought he'd failed you somehow, and maybe he could have done more, but he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be betrayed by the person he trusted most. After she hung up, I sat in the silence of what used to be our home and realized I'd invented a narrative that justified my choices. Tom hadn't been neglectful. He'd been tired. We'd been tired. We'd fallen into patterns that every couple with young kids falls into. And instead of talking to him, instead of fighting for us, I'd look for someone to validate my loneliness and call it love. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. Tom was asking for primary custody. His lawyer had documentation of my affair, proof that I'd been consistently lying and unavailable. He had character references from friends, family, neighbors. He had a stable home and a support system. I had nothing. I was the woman who'd cheated, the woman who'd broken her family. No judge was going to look at me with sympathy. My own mother barely spoke to me when I told her. I didn't raise you to do this, she said, and I could hear the disappointment that would probably never fully fade. Work became unbearable. Marcus had moved to a different department, and the rumor mill had turned me into some kind of home-wrecking seductress. Never mind that Marcus had been just as willing. Never mind that he'd been the one to pursue me in the beginning. None of that mattered. I was the married one. I was the one with a child. I was the one who should have known better. I applied for a transfer to a different office. It was granted immediately. Everyone was relieved to have me gone. The visitation schedule Tom proposed was generous given what I'd done. Every other weekend, Wednesday evenings, half the holidays. It should have felt like enough. It felt like losing everything that mattered. Leo started asking why Daddy didn't live with us anymore. He was only 4. How do you explain adult failures to a child who still believes in superheroes and magic? I told him that Mommy and Daddy still loved him very much, that sometimes grown-ups had to leave separately. He seemed to accept this in the way children do, adapting to the new reality without fully understanding it. But there were moments when he'd ask when we'd all live together again, and I'd have to watch Tom's face carefully control itself into something neutral as he said, "This is how it is now, buddy." I thought about reaching out to Tom constantly, writing him letters explaining everything, begging for another chance. But what would I even say? That I'd been selfish, that I'd mistaken his quiet devotion for indifference, that I'd thrown away something real for a fantasy that evaporated the moment it became inconvenient. He knew all that already. 6 months after he found out, I saw Tom at a coffee shop with a woman. She was laughing at something he'd said, and he had that smile I remembered from when we first met, the one that was open and hopeful and unguarded. He saw me watching, our eyes met for just a second. There was no anger in his face anymore, just a flatness, an absence where something used to be. That hurt worse than anything. I went home to my small apartment, the one I'd taken after we sold the house. Half of Leo's toys were scattered across the living room floor from his last visit. I picked them up one by one, remembering when Tom and I had bought most of them together, when we'd been a team, when we'd been building something. The affair partner fantasy had lasted less than 2 months. Marcus had moved on immediately, from what I heard, probably found someone else to make him feel important, someone without complications. But I was still living in the wreckage of what I'd destroyed, still waking up alone, still missing the sound of Tom making coffee in the morning, still aching for the life I'd had and hadn't appreciated until it was gone. People talk about affairs like they're some grand passion, some unavoidable force of nature. They're not. They're a choice you make every single time you send that text, take that call, cross that line, every time you lie. Every time you justify it by saying you deserve happiness, as if happiness is something you can take from other people without consequences. I deserved honesty, I deserved to communicate, I deserved to fight for my marriage or end it with integrity. What I didn't deserve was to keep both lives going until one of them imploded. The guilt doesn't fade, it changes shape, becomes something you carry differently, but it doesn't leave. Every time I pick Leo up for visitation and see Tom's carefully neutral face, I feel it. Every time Leo talks about something fun he did at Daddy's house with Daddy's new life that doesn't include me, I feel it. I joined a support group for people recovering from their own mistakes. Most of them had stories like mine, moments of weakness that became patterns of deception. We all thought we were special cases. We all thought we deserved something more. We were all wrong. There's no redemption arc here. No moment where Tom forgives me and we start over. No dramatic reunion. Real life doesn't work like that. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Some trust once broken can't be repaired. I have my job. I have my son every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. I have an apartment with secondhand furniture and a coffee maker that works half the time. I have a life that functions but doesn't feel like living. And I have the knowledge that I did this to myself, to us, to Leo. That every bit of this wreckage is a direct result of choices I made while telling myself I was just following my heart. Sometimes at night I think about that text, the first one, the harmless one. If I could go back to that moment on the couch, hearing my husband give our son a bath upstairs, hearing them laugh together, would I send it? I tell myself no. I tell myself I'd put the phone down and go upstairs and join them. Tell Tom I'd been feeling disconnected. Suggest counseling. Suggest date nights that were actually dates. Suggest anything other than seeking validation from someone else. But I can't go back. None of us can. We just have to live with the choices we made and the people we became when we weren't paying attention. Last week, Leo drew a picture at school. It was of 3 people. That's Daddy, he explained, pointing to the tallest figure. That's me. And that's Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel, the woman from the coffee shop. That's nice, baby, I said and meant it. Because Tom deserves happiness. He deserves someone who sees his steady devotion for what it is. Someone who appreciates quiet mornings and shared routines and the profound intimacy of building a life with someone who shows up every single day. I had that. I threw it away because I wanted something that felt like fire instead of warmth. I didn't understand that fires burn out. That warmth is what sustains you. By the time I learned the difference, it was too late. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm rating it as a warning. If you're thinking about crossing that line, if you're justifying secret messages and stolen moments, if you're telling yourself you deserve to feel alive again, stop. Put down the phone. Go home. Fight for what you have or end it with honesty. But don't do what I did. Don't convince yourself that destruction is somehow freedom. Some mistakes don't destroy you at once. They just make sure you'll never heal the same way again. And you'll spend the rest of your life watching what you destroyed get rebuilt without you, knowing you only have yourself to blame.